we've kind of looked at this style of the Dr. Seuss Architecture buildings, you are going to begin to draw your own cityscape of a Dr. Seuss style piece of architecture, or city that would be made in the style of Dr. Seuss. So the directions are telling you that number one, you need to be inspired by the examples provided to create your own version of a Dr. Seuss cityscape, but do not copy the examples exactly like you see them. Number two, in the space below, you must draw at least 5 buildings that appear on the horizon line. Each building should look different. You can decide if the building is a single story or a multi-level building. And when I grade this assignment, that is worth 5 points. Number 3, your buildings need to have a roof, windows, doors, and pattern or texture on the surface. That is 5 points. Number 4, you need to make some part of the house, door, windows, or extra features 3-dimensional to show form. That's 5 points. Number 5, draw lightly in pencil first, then outline in Sharpie marker. Do not color anything in solid with Sharpie marker because you will add color in Photoshop. So that's 5 points. And then lastly, make sure your Sharpie lines connect and there are not spaces in between the lines. And then just remember that you should be neat with how you go about drawing this. So if you're a confident artist, you can go ahead and just start drawing in the space provided. Use pencil first so that if you make mistakes, you can erase. I would draw lightly so that if you erase, the lines disappear completely. But if you're an artist that's not super confident in your idea, you can begin with a whiteboard to start with to make a plan. So the first thing that I would do is decide what your horizon line is going to look like. Is it going to be a straight line all the way across the box? Or do you want it to have a little more movement to it? Maybe it's a wavy line, or maybe it turns into a hill at some point. So then you need to consider how much space is above the horizon line to begin to draw in your 5 buildings. So 5 buildings need to be on the horizon line. So decide where they're going to be located, if they're going to be side by side or if there's going to be a space in between. And then decide what's the shape of the building going to look like. What types of lines are you going to use? Do you want your buildings to be all curved and wavy? Do you want some of your buildings to have straighter edges to them? You need to think through the type of roof that you're going to include and the doors and windows. So I'm just going to kind of begin to create the front of my house. So then I might decide what style of roof I want. And then I need to have doors and windows on each. So maybe I have like a curved door and maybe a curved window. Maybe there's a window up here in my roof. Then it says that each building has to have pattern or texture. So you decide where that's going to be. Am I going to put pattern or texture on my roof? Maybe that's an easy choice where I add in repeating lines to build a pattern on my rooftop. And then I would repeat that for the next of my 5 buildings. So maybe I have another building that's going to kind of curve and lean over this way. And maybe this one has a side building connected to it. And maybe it's got a pointed, jaggedy roof. Maybe this one has like a dome roof where a piece might be hanging over. Then I might have a square door. Maybe this one has silly shaped windows with some crossbars. And remember, you can add extra details. So maybe this one has some stairs that come down to the ground to get up to a little window, door area over here. And then I'm going to repeat this till I have 5 ideas drawn out. There's my pattern. So if it is helpful, draw it on a whiteboard first, but pay attention to the timer on the board because you need to transfer this idea into the space here on the worksheet, and you do not get to keep the whiteboard. You have to erase your whiteboard at the end of the period. So that's the only downfall to using a whiteboard, is that you have to be able to get this idea on your paper to begin with. Okay, then remember that you also have to make something look 3-dimensional. So right now these are flat. They don't show 3D yet. But if I include the side of the house or the side of the roof, now it's starting to create 3 dimensions because I see a front and a side. I could create 3 dimensions by drawing another edge to the door, or I could do some thickness over here. So double check that somehow, some way you've got 3 dimensions to your design, because that is also a requirement. All right, when you finish drawing your pencil version, you need to decide how neat does that drawing look in terms of eraser marks and marks that don't need to be there. If your drawing is clean and neat, then you can go straight to outlining with a Sharpie marker. When you go about doing this, remember that you want your Sharpie lines to touch another line. So you're making enclosed areas. That is going to be necessary for the next step that we do when I scan this drawing and put it in the computer. When you open it in Photoshop and fill the color, it's going to be much easier if your lines connect so that you have enclosed spaces. If your drawing has a lot of eraser marks and smears and smudges from the pencil that don't belong, then what I will do is send you to a light table and give you another piece of paper to trace your design on with Sharpie marker, because you don't want those mistakes and smudges on your final design that you're going to use in Photoshop. So be neat, go slowly to get this all outlined as neat as possible with Sharpie marker. All right, the last thing that I'm going to do when my drawing is outlined in Sharpie marker, I am going to take an eraser and erase away the pencil lines, because chances are when you traced it, you did not get precisely on the pencil line. So using a clean eraser, if the eraser is dirty, the easiest way to clean it is to get a piece of paper that's white and just erase on a clean white piece of paper, and that's going to take the lead off the eraser to clean it before you use it. Then just carefully start erasing over the top of the Sharpie to get all the pencil lines removed that were down underneath. And then when you finish, you really want to check to see, do your Sharpie lines connect? You should not have gaps between the Sharpie line. And if you do see gaps, then you need to fill in and make those Sharpies touch before you turn this assignment in. So I can see, all right, here my Sharpie didn't connect to the horizon line. Right here, my door didn't connect. So I'm just going to kind of fill in the little gaps that I see, because this will make your next step of filling it in with color in Photoshop a lot easier if your lines connect. And then when you are finished, make sure your name is on your assignment and then turn it into the turn-in tray.